Hi everyone, I just wanted to post a video just to go over the expectations and guidelines of this final research paper that you have due at the very end of the semester called the Culturally Responsive Practitioner. So I'm going to go to the assignment guidelines now so we can look at those. So this is a really big project. So it is a research paper. You can read the description of what it's helping to assess up here in this initial paragraph up top here. And then I want you just to look at this outlining your research paper. So again, you're going to answer 15 questions. In each of the questions, you're going to use a different paragraph. So each question, you need to switch to a new paragraph. I don't want you to put the numbers in. I don't want you to answer them as if you're answering 15 different questions. You'll just format the answers in the form of a paragraph, 15 separate paragraphs. Again, within this research paper, because it is a research paper, if there are questions that maybe some of the answers are not something that you went over in the textbook, which a lot of it will be from your textbook, but there might be some things that you need to reflect on that you'll need to find outside of your textbook. So you're going to need to go online or to the library or somewhere and find some research that'll help you to answer those questions. That's why this is called a research paper. Excuse me. So again, you're going to use APA format whenever you're citing your research, so make sure if you're using outside sources, whether it be your textbook, an online resource, a different book that maybe you found in a library, make sure that you are citing that information. It's very, very important that you cite your research so that I know where it's coming from. But again, so you're going to have 15 questions. So number one, what are some examples of ways that communities and social backgrounds influence children's development? Okay, so think about that, thinking about communities, the social backgrounds that different families have, different communities have. How is that influencing development? Again, some of this stuff was brought up in your textbook, but then again, some of it may not be. So however you're going to reflect on this question in the paper, you're going to need to figure out what kind of research you're going to want to use to reflect that. You're going to know some of that just through reading, through your experience, through other information you've learned through other coursework, but reflect on that information. Again, it is a research paper, so again, you are going to have to go out and look for some of this information. Number two, what are some examples of ways that family structure, cultural, and linguistic backgrounds influence children's development? Again, you've looked at different family structures in this class through the textbook. You've looked at some of the things that different cultural, linguistic, ethnic backgrounds, how that impacts children's development, how it impacts how we interact with those children and those families. So again, you're going to look at those things, you're going to reflect on that in the paper. Number three, how can early childhood practitioners, families, and communities partner to support children's healthy development and learning? Again, not all of this information may have come from your textbook. Some of it may have come from a video that you watched throughout the course in one of the course modules. That's why it's so important to read those articles, to watch those extra videos, because again, they help to supplement that information that's in the textbook. So again, think about how all three of those things can partner together to support children's healthy development and learning. Number four, how does each family's unique strengths and challenges be effectively supported through partnerships with early childhood settings? There was a lot of information and research within the course modules about this. How can we support that partnership? How can we do that as early childhood professionals? So again, reflect on that in that paragraph. Again, these paragraphs may be pretty extensive. It's not going to be like 3 to 5 sentence short paragraphs. Some of them may be a little bit extensive. But again, make sure you're thoroughly reflecting on these questions and using research to support. That's going to show me your understanding of the question and going to show me that you really took the time to find information that is helping to answer those questions directly. Question 5, what are some ways that practitioners can support and advocate for written and verbal communication strategies that respect the unique communication styles and home languages of families in their early childhood programs? Again, what are some ways? How can we support and advocate for those different styles? Again, not all of the families in your programs are going to be English language learners. We know, and you read about lots of families that are second language learners. What are some ways that we can advocate to make sure that programs are implementing methods that help communication span the globe and to span all of those different ethnic backgrounds that we're going to have, so that everyone is understanding what we're talking about. We have those relationships. We're working to show families that we respect them, that we're willing to work with them, to communicate with them, so that everyone is on the same page. So again, how are you going to communicate that information? Number 6, discuss multiple ways practitioners can encourage meaningful and consistent collaboration in connection with families that is designed to support the family's engagement in their child's care and education. So again, there was information in the textbook on this. There were videos about this. So again, think about that. How multiple ways, again, so don't just discuss one way, multiple ways that we can encourage meaningful and consistent collaboration and connection. How can we do that? Again, a lot of this you're going to know from what we've learned in this class. Some of it's going to come from your own experience. But again, if there's not enough, if there's only a couple of things that you can think of, then research and find out some other ways that this can be done, so that you can reflect on this in the paper. Question number 7, how can practitioners advocate and support the unique strengths, expectations, values, and child-rearing practices of the families in their early childhood programs to ensure they are being culturally responsive to the needs? Okay, this is super important. Again, the families that come into our programs, they are not all the same. They are all coming from different backgrounds. They're all wanting different things for their children. They have different values, expectations. They have different ways of bringing up their children. How can we support and advocate for these families as professionals and be culturally responsive? We can't always push what we believe on our families. We have to look at those unique family structures and those dynamics, and we have to support them. And so how are we going to do that? Just as we're supporting children in developmentally appropriate practices in learning about their unique strengths and their development, we also have to think about families in that way too. We have to use those same type of best practices with our families too and support them where they're at as well. So reflect on that in paragraph 7. Coming down to question 8, it says, identify and describe some examples of these strengths-based, respectful, and culturally responsive practices from the previous question. So again, question 8 is continuing to springboard off of question 7. So you're going to talk about that within both of those paragraphs. Questions 9 and 10 are going to work together as well. So 9 says, describe culturally and linguistically responsive communication and collaboration strategies that support culturally sensitive expectations for children's development and learning. So again, thinking about that, how are we going to be culturally responsive to students in our classrooms that so they can communicate with us? Again, we know that not all children are going to be English language learners, so we have to know and understand and have ways that we can help communicate with them. We have to be culturally responsive to their needs, and we also have to be linguistically responsive to their needs. And so how are we going to do that? So again, take information from the textbook, take information from the course module. If that's not enough information, or if that doesn't really truly answer that question, then again, you're going to have to research some stuff. There's lots and lots of research out there that's going to help you to answer these questions fully and completely with lots of detail and support. You just have to take the time to do it. So that's another reason why you should be working on this project early. Don't wait till the last minute to do it. This is the last big project of the semester, so make sure that you are taking time to work through this research paper. Question 10, again, in the strategies described in the previous question, so that's question 9, how do these strategies promote family engagement in the assessment, goal setting, and problem solving related to concerns or challenges that may arise from the families in an early childhood program? So again, now you're thinking about that, how you're being culturally and linguistically responsive when it comes to communication. So how do those communication strategies help to engage your families when it comes to assessment, setting goals for them, problem solving any concerns or challenges that you may have? So again, thinking about that too. I know in another question earlier in your research paper, it also talked a little bit about communication methods. That's more written communication. Now we're talking more verbal communication. So again, thinking about that. How is all of that going to help? How is it advocating for the children? How is it advocating for the parents? How is that communication going to help that relationship between you and the families, in the fact that they know that you've taken the time to be able to communicate effectively with them in the language that they feel comfortable with. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to learn a second language, but again, what methods can you apply to be able to communicate and have everyone feel comfortable being able to discuss the needs of the child and be able to plan and talk about assessment and problem solve with them. So that's what that question is talking about in question 10. Question 11, what are some ways that practitioners could continue to further their development to be culturally responsive to the needs of the families in their programs? So again, this is going to talk more professional development. So think about that along those terms. What professional development can you go to? What professional development can you embark on to be able to be more culturally responsive to the needs of your families? Question 12, what are some ways to engage families in culturally responsive ways to help them learn more about their child's care and education, as well as further educate them on child development? Again, when we say the word culturally responsive, we have to think about the needs of our families. What are their values that they have? What is their child rearing practices? What kind of culture do they come from? What kind of expectations do they have? Are there any language barriers that we need to overcome? So thinking about all those things and how are we responsive to these needs so that we can help to further educate them on their child's development. How can we communicate information about early childhood education? So thinking about that question in those terms. Question 13, when orienting and meeting new families in an early childhood program, discuss culturally and linguistically appropriate procedures to gather the information. So again, thinking about that. You have a new family in your program, they're learning about your classroom, maybe you're an administrator in the program, you have a family that's coming in, you have to think about, again, all of those things that I've talked about. Their values, their expectations, their culture, their ethnic background. So all of those things, how are we going to be responsive to them whenever we are meeting them, when we are getting them oriented into our program and we're gathering all the information to have their children come into our program. Number 14, discuss methods to integrate the information from the previous question, so question 13, to ensure practitioners are being supportive of ongoing development and learning and communicating these adaptations and suggestions to the families. So again, making sure that you're using this information, the concerns, goals, needs, health concerns, all of those that information. Make sure that, how are you integrating that information to make sure that you're continually being supportive of those families, that you're adapting to the needs of those families, and that you're using that information to make suggestions and to help them in the process of their children coming into our programs, getting adjusted, feeling comfortable, building those relationships. And then question 15, it says design an assessment procedure that engages the families as team members in the assessment process. So again, this is talking about what kind of procedure would you use that could engage the families in your program as team members, as a member of not just the teaching team, but how can you bring along your families and make them feel part of the team that is helping to make sure that the goals that you all have for that child are all on the same page, that are helping that child to be successful, and that you're supporting the goals that the family has, and they're on the same page of the goals that you have for that child. So how could you design an assessment procedure that helps to engage families and helping to figure out how everyone's going to be on that same page in assessing the child and making sure that they are getting all of their needs met, the needs of the classroom and the needs of the family. So I hope that makes sense. I know I went through those questions quickly, but if you have any further questions about what you're supposed to be writing about, the expectations of this paper, please let me know. But take some time, start working on this paper, and again, like I said, you're going to need to do some research. You're going to need to use the research that you've been already given from your textbook and the modules, and again, just let me know if you have questions. So that's all I have for now, and I will be looking forward to reading your papers. Thanks so much. Bye, guys.